All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Seahawks Jets game and also get into talking about should Aaron Rodgers be benched. So, yeah, this game, the Jets, it was a kind of a typical Jets loss. Um, it fell under the category of they had a lead and then they ended up losing it at the end. Now, they were up 21-6, and they didn't score any points after that. You had Aaron Rodgers and the Jets putting together a nice drive that led to a Rodgers to Devontae Adams touchdown. You also had a kickoff return in this game as well. Rodgers threw another touchdown pass. That's the next segment. You had Aaron Rodgers throwing another touchdown pass. I think that was to Isaiah Davis, um, I believe. So, they put together some good drives and they made some good plays, and you thought, okay, maybe this game they'll break through and get a win here, kind of build some momentum here to kind of finish the year strong. No, it didn't happen. It did not happen. It pretty much ended like it has with the Jets, where you have a lead and you just can't they can't hold on to it. Um, but yeah, no, a couple of touchdown passes by Rodgers. Now they did miss the extra point on the first touchdown, which doesn't surprise me because the Jets have had kicking issues this whole time. Now the extra point actually was blocked. Um, Very wild game. Seahawks special teams were not good in this. You had a couple of fumbles. You had some missed kicks. It just this was a mess of a game. Um, Now the turning point of the game was the Jets were driving. They get down to the Seattle 9-yard line. This is in the first half. And Rodgers misses Garrett Wilson in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. Misses him. Wide open touchdown. And then on the very next play, he does a quick throw over the middle. And Leonard Williams is dropping back in coverage, who used to play for the Jets and the Giants. It gets tipped or get batted, and he ends up picking it off, and he returns it 92 yards for a touchdown. And that made it 21-13. And that was the turning point of the game. The Jets did not score, after it was 21-6. That was the turning point. And the Seahawks slowly but surely chipped away at that lead, and they ended up getting the win 26-21. There were bad penalties in this game. Devontae Adams had a crucial drop at one point. Also, he got penalized for an offensive pass interference. And Rodgers looked better at times. He was moving around, so the bye week definitely helped. But the consistency is not there with his throws. And I don't like saying that because again, he's been one of my favorite players since I started watching football. But we're nearing the end here, unfortunately. The pick six was bad. I have not been a fan of the quick throws, and this goes back to his days in Green Bay. I just was never a fan of them, but they continue to do that, and that led to a pick six by Leonard Williams, who used to play for the Jets. How fitting. And of course, the other thing too is you had Geno Smith, get the win against his former team. So I forget what the stat is. I know with Leonard Williams, that was the longest return by a defensive lineman in NFL history, something along the lines of that. But I think it was the first time since the late 90s, I want to say, that you had two former quarterbacks of a certain team beat that team in the same year. I forget what year it was. Might not even be from the 90s. But you had Geno Smith and Sam Darnold both defeat the Jets. In two games where the Jets could have won. Now, the Vikings game, Rodgers had 3 picks, but they were driving down the field to possibly win the game. And then here, they had a lead, and the offense went quiet. The Jets have failed to put together a full game this season, even in some of their wins. I guess, the Patriots game, that was, they put together a full game there. The Titans game, I guess you can maybe say that. You can make the argument for it. But the Titans kind of gifted them that win. Other than and the Texans game, they were awful in the first half. So, other than that, they just have not put together a full game. And if they're able to do that, they have more than just 3 wins on the season. Anthony Manzano in the chat says, with how he is doing in Washington, do you think Kingsbury is going to get another head coaching job? I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. But, you kind of worry about him as a head coach because it really did not end well in Arizona. And his seasons kind of all were the same where, like, the team would get off to a good start and then they would kind of tail off. So you do worry about that. But, yeah, I think he will get some consideration. I mean, the Bears definitely would be the spot because, of the history with Caleb Williams. But we'll have to wait and see. He also said, I didn't expect Aaron to fall off a cliff like this. Do you think it's mostly the injuries have finally caught up to him? I think it's a combination of things. I think it's the injuries. I think it's the age. I think it's also the team that he is on right now. Because I've said this, you look at some of these other quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Matthew Stafford. They went to better situations. Now, the Jets on paper, looked like a good situation because you had a very good defense that he'd be playing behind. You had Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall as playmakers on this team. My concern going into this Jets era with Aaron Rodgers was the offensive line, and that's what led to him getting hurt last year in a way. The offensive line still hasn't been great. The Jets tried to address it. They brought in 3 different offensive linemen. John Simpson, Tyron Smith, who has not been good, and also Morgan Moses. They drafted Olu Fasanu as well, but, Rodgers took a lot of hits this year. And like I said, the bye week looked like it helped him a little bit, but, like some people are saying, he still thinks that he can make all the throws that he was able to make in his prime, and he just can't. Not on a consistent basis. I still think he can make throws, just the consistency is not there. He also says, so you think if he had chosen to go to Miami instead of the Jets, it would have been different? I think so. I mean, yeah, I think it would have been different. Because, again, you got 2 different systems. I think they got better playmakers over there than the Jets do. Offensively, at least. But he wanted to play with the Jets. He saw firsthand what this Jets defense did to him in Green Bay. I watched the highlights of that a couple years ago. That defense, I think held him to 10 points. So, he thought, okay, I can go here and maybe win here. Change the scenery, but it just ended up not working out. And, the Jets, another losing season. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to end up coming back next year or not, if he's going to want to continue to play just somewhere else. But it just it hasn't been good. It has not been good. And, if this is how he goes out, it's going to be such a sad way for this career to end. Obviously it's tough. Not everybody's going to be Peyton Manning where you win your Super Bowl your last year. Even Tom Brady's last year wasn't great. He finished with a losing record. But it doesn't matter because the guy won 7 Super Bowls. Aaron Rodgers only has 1. And as great as his career has been, and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, he does leave you with wanting more. And, in the early 2010s, there were some years there where, he could have probably got to another Super Bowl and won it, but it just didn't happen. You had the Giants knocked them off. You had Colin Kaepernick in the Niners. You had what happened in the NFC Championship game in Seattle. I think that was kind of the turning point because I would never have expected Green Bay to lose a game like that. And, obviously you had the run the table year, but, that Packers team was not very good. And you saw that when they went up against the Falcons. And then, a couple of years where he was hurt. And, McCarthy's last year was not good. The LaFleur years, you had a chance, but, they ended up losing that. He didn't play great in the 2 playoff losses. He did play good in the NFC Championship game against the Bucs, but he needed to do a little bit more. And also the defense needed to get some stops too and not let Scotty Miller run free for a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. But now I'm just going off of all the Rodgers losses in the postseason. But Yeah, it's tough. But when it comes to him getting benched, Jeff Ulbrich, now he kind of left the door open. It was like a wait and see comment, but then he came out and said Rodgers gives them the best chance to win. And I mean, I understand some people are saying you'd rather have Tyrod Taylor, but what difference does it really make? What difference does it make? You have 9 losses on the year. I mean, just let Rodgers finish out the year, and if he gets hurt, then yeah, you put in Tyrod. But just let Rodgers finish out the year, and then you go from there. Anthony also in the chat says I got to scroll back up. With Aaron Rodgers specifically, is it possible that he has one of these types of issues where he's a quarterback that's refusing to admit his arm is not there anymore and adjust his game where he uses his ability to read the field instead of his arm talent and arm strength? And Aaron really doesn't have the patience to let Youngtown, a receiver, develop. You would constantly see him on the sidelines yelling at Dobbs and Watson for dropping balls. Yeah, I mean, that last year in Green Bay, it was kind of a transition because Devontae Adams left and, they had Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson step in. I mean, the very first play. I mean, the week 1 against the Vikings a couple years ago. Christian Watson was wide open. Rodgers threw a nice pass to him, and he dropped it. That would have been a walk-in touchdown. They were able to make things work though as the year went on, but yeah, kind of wish Devontae was still there for that last year in Green Bay. But I guess so. I mean, you know what? Because mentally, and it was the same thing with Peyton Manning. Mentally you still got it. It's just physically you may not have it anymore. I mean, Peyton Manning, his last year was not great. The Broncos defense single-handedly carried him to the Super Bowl, and they won it because of their defense. And Peyton managed the game, those last few games in the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. I still think, Rodgers definitely looks better than Peyton Manning his last year. But that's also because Peyton Manning had, the neck injuries and the neck surgeries, all that. So it's just, for Rodgers to be successful at this advanced age, well, again, you're coming off of a major injury. You have to be in the most perfect situation. You have to have a line that is a stone wall, that nobody's going to get past that. You got to have the weapons. You got to have the running game. You got to have the receivers. And then you got to have a defense that's competent. The Jets defense took a big step back this year. And it got worse when they let Robert Saleh go. I think they made a big mistake doing that in season. I think you should have kept Saleh around. You should have let the season play out with Saleh there and Joe Douglas. And then at the end of again, you get a head start on things. But I think Saleh should have stuck around because Jeff Ulbrich is not ready to be a head coach. He says, no, that's what I'm saying with Peyton specifically is different. He knew his arm wasn't going to be there when he got to Denver, so he started relying on his brain a lot more. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers are two different guys. They have different ways of thinking. And Rodgers probably still believes that he has it, but, we see the results on the field. It's not playing out the way, a lot of us hoped for. So it is what it is. He's not going to get benched. I think the Jets are going to let him play it out. We were talking about it in our production meeting. Would he get benched or released? I said the first thing that would probably happen is he gets benched. I don't think he's going to get released. But I don't think either of those things are happening at this moment. I think he's going to play out the rest of the year, and then the Jets will make a decision on whether they keep him or not, which probably means I would lean more towards that they're not keeping him, and then he's going to have to make a decision on whether he wants to play or not. So, but let me know what you guys think, though, about the game from Sunday. Again, a lot of sloppy play. Hey, the Seahawks get the win. They're in first place. So, give them credit, even though it hasn't been pretty. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the game. Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Chiefs-Raiders game, how that game unfolded, and do the Chiefs have what it takes to three-peat? We'll get into that discussion when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.